Hey, this is Dr. Infantino from Platinum Wellness. So people always ask me what goes on in our consultation. So great news is we have a patient who was willing to let us film as we go. So I'm not going to share a whole bunch of personal information, but just to give you guys an idea of how the process actually works. I thought I'd let you sit in on this one. So, all right, Casey. So here's the basic gist of what we do here. The purpose in our office, like today, what I'm going to do is read through everything you wrote down and really try to get a sense of, hey, what's going on physically in your body, right? So that some of the symptoms that you mentioned here, things like, your goals like losing weight or maybe having some more energy, some digestive stuff, the whole idea would be to figure out what's actually causing that stuff and to figuring out a targeted plan to actually change that. Because what happens out there all the time is we go, okay, well, I've got some indigestion, so I need maybe some Tums, or I want to lose weight, so I need some kind of diet drug, or I have no energy, so I need coffee, or I need Red Bulls. And the list goes on, and then eventually that translates into things like, my cholesterol is high, so I probably just need a little cholesterol meds, then I need a little bit of, the list goes on and on. And this is why the average person in this country who's a senior citizen is on like anywhere from 6 to, I've read as many as 11 prescriptions. Mm-hmm. So what we have really is a symptom management system. We don't exactly have really a healthcare system. Now look, I'm not saying that if someone needs a medication, they shouldn't have it. It saves lives. I get it. But I think most doctors would agree, if you get to the cause of the problem and resolve it, we'd be certainly one step ahead of the game. Absolutely. Right? And so when it comes to weight loss, which a lot of people come in, they're like, look, I'm just really frustrated. I don't understand what's going on. What I thought I'd do is kind of explain what I'm looking for so that as I go through this, I think it'll make a lot more sense to you. So think of it this way. There's two sets of hormones in your body. Right? There's fat storage hormones and fat burning hormones. Okay. Right? So let's say they're balanced. And you're like, all right, I'm going to go on a little diet, or I'm going to eat a little better, I'm going to get some exercise in. You should increase fat burning hormones, right? So as long as fat burning hormones go higher than fat storage hormones, what happens?
Lose weight.
Lose weight. You live happily ever after, everybody's happy. Here's the problem for most people, and here's the people I see. It's when fat storage hormones are already dominant. Now we've got a problem, right? So let's say things like a gut that's out of whack. That'll cause, if you kill off some of the healthy bacteria in your gut, what you end up doing is essentially your pancreas has to make more insulin to help digest food. Insulin's a powerful fat storage hormone, so fat storage hormones go up a little bit. If you had a period of stress anywhere in your life, right? And who hasn't? In fact, I have people who come in who childhood stress was the thing that created this problem. And what I mean by that is stress increases cortisol. That whole flight or fight thing. So a lot of us are stressed pretty constantly, or we had a stress years ago that was never resolved. Mm-hmm. So since it was never resolved, like the stressor might have went away, but our brain's still like in flight or fight mode, more sympathetic dominant. And look, you don't have to understand all this. That's what I'll be looking for. So that's why the questionnaire asks you about periods of stress, asks you a lot about digestion, asks you about a lot of different things that you might be going, what does this have to do with why I came in here? I don't see the connection. So things like environmental toxins, right? The EPA says the average American, if you could imagine this, has somewhere between 400 and 800 toxins in one fat cell. Kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
So what your body does is it goes, okay, if I am introduced, well, let's back up a little bit. They say on average, the average American household, there's been about 80,000 chemicals produced that are in household stuff like your Windex, your cleaners, your personal care products, all these different things. Lipstick, lotions. You put a lotion on your skin, it disappears. Well, where's it going? It's going in your body.
Right.
So if you wouldn't drink it, you probably shouldn't put it on your skin. But when you think about all the things we come in contact with, our bodies go, man, I can't get this all out, so I'm going to store it somewhere. So the first place your body stores toxins is in fat cells and cellulite and your lymphatic system. All right, so if you're storing toxins in fat cells, now think about what happens. If we go on a diet, we want to pull fat out of this fat cell. Mm-hmm. Well, do you think your body likes that? Because what's happening? If I'm pulling fat out, but I'm leaving toxins in, muck gets more and more concentrated. So now I've got a bunch of toxins concentrated in a fat cell. What's your body going to do with that? It's going to go, hey, first chance we get, let's increase fat. Let's put more fat back in there to dilute that mess.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. So that's why so many people go through what they call the rebound effect. They go on a diet, they're like, man, nothing's happening. So, right, remember that whole fat burning, fat storage thing? Right. So now we got fat storage hormones up here. Okay. And so they go, all right, I'm going to eat right, I'm going to exercise, and I'm getting up to here. Man, let's push it a little harder. Let's do 500 calories. Let's add HCG or phentermine. So now they maybe get to the point where they're burning fat, right. But who can keep that up? Like, nobody, right? So what ends up happening eventually is they go, okay, I quit. So now fat burning goes down, but what happens to fat storage? It actually goes up.
Wow.
Why? Because your body says, I better protect you from that next famine or whatever just happened. So another thing that'll increase fat storage hormones is cycles of diet. Every time we restrict calories, our body gets better at fat storage. So the objective, and what I'm going to look for to see if I can help you with today, is it's not so much how do we burn fat. It's if we're out of balance, how do we get fat storage back to normal so that when you have just a normal, healthy lifestyle, fat burning goes up just enough so that you burn fat, live happily ever after.
Wow.
Does that make sense? Because what people think, they really think, they go, okay, I just guess I have to work harder at this. Like, I'm just gonna have to try more. I'm gonna eat less, move more, which is probably the number one thing that screws people up. Because if your body's starving, it certainly isn't going to heal. And that's really what this approach is about, right? People think if I lose weight, I'll get healthy. It doesn't work that way, right? What happens is you have to get really healthy and then you lose weight. And so when I say healthy, what I really mean is if I could restore balance by getting all those things back to normal, right? Let's say we can heal the gut and cleanse the liver, cleanse the lymphatic system, detoxify or cleanse the body so that, let's say, instead of just pulling fat out, what if we could do things that would pull the toxins which are transported in fat out? Now we've cleaned the body, right? Because what do those toxins do also? They compete with hormones, which is why almost everybody today seems to need what? Some kind of hormone replacement, right? Even guys, it's like you got low T. Well, those toxins compete with hormones. They mimic them, they bind them. This is why we got a thyroid, Look, I'm not saying it's the only reason we have hormone issues these days, but I would say one of the big ones is environmental toxins. So we address each of these things. So what I'm doing when I read through your paperwork really is going, okay, where might this person need extra support, right? Might it be that, hey, based on my past history, my liver could probably use a little support? Because your liver is your fat burning organ, right? You don't burn fat unless your liver does it. But if your liver is busy detoxing and trying to clean constantly, and when you consider our environment, that's most people's problem, really, right? That's one of the problems anyway. Or if we look through this and you're like, man, I've been stressed, or I went through, a divorce, or somebody died, or some big thing like that, all of these are potential factors that can increase fat storage hormones. And the problem is so many people try so hard to burn fat. They're like, I guess I'm lazy maybe, or I have no willpower. That's another one I hear all the time, right? People come in and go, I don't get it. Like, I just crave the wrong things. Well, remember that gut thing we were talking about before? If your gut's out of balance, the healthy bacteria die off. One round of antibiotics, by the way, is enough to kill 80% of healthy bacteria. Now, sometimes people are in fat storage mode since when they had tubes put in their ears, or the tonsillitis that they had, or the sinus infection they get every winter and they take a round of antibiotics. And again, look, we're not saying it's never necessary, but if you think about round after round, and then our greatest exposure to antibiotics, for instance, is just in the food we eat. So now all of a sudden we get a gut that's out of balance, yeast and some bad guys start to grow. When yeast grow in your system, they cause us to crave what they love. And what do they love? Sugar, white flour, grains, all the things that most people go, man, if I could just give this up for a little while, I'd be doing great. And then when they give it up for a little while, they're like, I guess I could eat this healthy way, but I sure do want to eat that way.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is it's not about willpowering yourself to where you're like, okay, I'm going to deny myself everything I love forever. It's simply about restoring balance, take a short period of time. And that's essentially what the approach here is all about. I'm not going to restrict calories. In fact, I would say the biggest challenge I have with people in here is getting them to eat enough so that their body heals. So we create a foundation of food that's just doing no harm. So it's like all the veggies you want, all the lean proteins, chicken, turkey, fish, healthy fats, avocados, olive oil, coconut oil, butter, even is fine from a grass-fed cow. Some grains are okay. Most grains got to go. So I'm going to kind of give you a heads up ahead of time so you can go, okay, look, I'm just not willing to do that. Because obviously we have to do a little bit something different if we want to make some kind of change, right? So some grains like brown rice, wild rice, lentils, quinoa, that stuff all tends to go pretty well. But other things like gluten grains, wheat, oats, stuff like that kind of has to go, as does dairy. Because the lactose in dairy tends to feed yeast and create more gut imbalances. Things like artificial sweeteners would have to go for a little while. Coffee, which usually people look at me like, how am I going to do this?
Exactly what I did.
And the problem is not that coffee is evil in and of itself, but coffee acidifies the gut. So most of the things I just mentioned that are bad, they're either they're either killing off good bacteria or feeding yeast. Right? So if you want to reboot the metabolism, reboot hormones and lose weight and improve energy and all those things, we're just going to get you healthy and balanced internally. So for a short period of time, eat well. And then there are supplements. And supplements is a really important piece of this equation, and it's just for a short period of time. What the supplements basically do is, for the most part, they're binding and eliminating things like herbicides, pesticides, heavy metals, which are linked to yeast. That's just all the stuff they spray on our food. Like all our food is sprayed with all sorts of chemicals, right? And so we're going to draw all that stuff out. At the same time, you might remember if you watched that video, I talk about the gut and how there's like little pockets, and those pockets get all full of muck.
Right.
Well, they estimate the average person 5 to 25 pounds of undigested fecal material just sitting in those pockets. So some of these herbs will pull all that stuff out. And then remember we talked about the little villi? Like those are the guys inside your gut where the bacteria hang out. And those 100 trillion bacteria do some really important things. So we have to make sure they're there. Now, as I read through this, I'll get a sense of, well, maybe that's an issue for you, maybe it's not. But when you think about the fact that those bacteria digest food, which, by the way, is when people come in and they say, look, doc, I tried this healthy lifestyle thing. It doesn't work. Why? What are they basically saying? They're like, look, I eat vegetables, but I feel more bloaty, more gassy. Like, it just doesn't agree with me. It doesn't agree with you because your digestive system isn't able to break it down. That's the problem. Mm-hmm. So we want to make sure that your digestive system is working properly. That's super important. So things like, where was I at? The supplements. So some of them will draw out bad things. Some of them help heal the gut. Some of them cleanse the liver, kidneys, bloodstream, in particular the lymphatic system. All really important pieces of the equation. The next thing that's really important that we use are different therapies. Now, some of these therapies, well, there's 3 in particular that I would say are sort of the mainstay in here for pretty good reason. Number 1 is something called a far infrared sauna. Now, the reason a far infrared sauna is so critical is that it does several things really well. But in particular, it isolates a wavelength of sunlight called far infrared, which will actually penetrate about 1.5 inches to 2 inches under your skin. And when it hits fat cells, that wavelength of light, it causes little pores to open, so both fat and toxins are leaked into the system. Now, the supplements that are like little Pac-Man can go, okay, I'm going to bind all this nasty stuff so that your liver, kidneys can start processing and eliminating. Right? So that's how we get some of this stuff out. So the other one that's great for a lot of people is something called whole body vibration. Whole body vibration, a platform we stand on, as it vibrates, what it does is well, 2 things, but one in particular is it causes lymph valves to open and close so that you can pump your lymphatic system out. Because remember, your lymphatic system is your body's sewer system, right? All the muck gets stuck there. The only way that thing gets cleaned out is by what? Running, jumping, bouncing.
Right.
But the reality is, very often people just aren't ready to go run, jump, and bounce. And if they do, it's a stressor to a body out of balance. So what ends up happening to that person? They're running, getting more fatigued, feeling worse, burning the 500 calories, but your body's saying, hey, man, something's up. We better store 500 also.
Yeah.
So the best way to both burn calories and clean your lymphatic system is about 10 minutes of whole body vibration. So you can imagine if you can accomplish in 10 minutes out there what you can accomplish in roughly a 5-mile run, that's a great trade-off. The last thing that tends to work great for a lot of people is something called exercise with oxygen therapy. Because oxygen at the end of the day does 2 things really well. One, it's super cleansing. So it helps people sleep better, helps improve energy. In fact, your skin's the largest organ of elimination, right? But lungs are number 2. So if I can flood 95% pure oxygen into your body while you're exercising, you're not only going to burn fat, because fat's burned in the presence of oxygen. Now, when we do cardio or aerobics, we're just trying to get more air in. Yeah. But the air is about, this is like maybe 15% oxygen. Well, at 95%, you're burning a lot more fat, and you're detoxing at the same time. Then we use potentially some other things like body wraps. The body wraps we use were developed by a biochemist out of UCLA. And the reason I was turned on to his stuff was my grandmother died from diabetes, and I remember watching her have her toes chopped off, and then the ankles, and the knees. Yeah, it was horrible. And essentially, this guy's work was all about, okay, how do we prevent that from happening? By getting things to flow, right? Because it's just a blood flow issue. So these wraps were developed by this guy to really improve flow. Essentially, what he was doing is cleaning out the lymphatic system, so that things would kind of move so that you could avoid that stuff. But what we've learned is they're amazing for breaking down cellulite, because that's really what stops flow, right? Cellulite isn't fat. It's really just a toxic body condition. It's edema, it's swelling, it's things not moving. So if I had to sum it all up, the approach in here really boils down to flooding your body with great nutrition, specific to whatever your paperwork tells me you're going to need, removing things that don't belong there, which unfortunately, if you've lived in America for any length of time, there's stuff that doesn't belong there. Yeah. In fact, could you imagine, there was a study done recently where they said fetal cord blood. Like before you were even born, there's about 200, I remember 270 or something different toxins isolated just in there. Flame retardants, all sorts of stuff. So cleaning the body out is really important. And to use the right supplements and the right therapies can help that happen very quickly. So most people, somewhere a month, 2-3 months, can drop a pound a day, but way more importantly, the best part, feel better, right? We have people start new relationships, start new careers. They think clearer. They're like, oh, that fuzzy-headed thing's gone, or the reflux. And the funny thing is nobody ever comes in for this stuff. Well, I mean, sometimes they do, but for the most part, they come in because they're like, I want to lose weight, or I want to get off cholesterol meds, or I want to reverse type 2 diabetes, or whatever. And they think like that's the goal, but then they go, wow, I had no idea I wasn't sleeping. Like just sleep, for instance. Here's an example, because I see in here, you'd mentioned sleep. Your gut, those healthy gut bacteria, right, they do a whole bunch of things. They lower blood pressure, cholesterol, but they also create serotonin. Serotonin's a neurotransmitter that keeps us balanced, happy, healthy. Right. Do you know what serotonin converts into? Melatonin. And melatonin is a hormone your body needs to fall asleep. So very often people will come in and like, my serotonin's off, like they're a little depressed, they're a little anxious, they don't sleep very well, their gut's a little out of whack, then they start gaining a little weight, then they have inflammation in their system, so the inflammation, your liver goes, well, let's make more cholesterol. So cholesterol starts to go up, and it's just a cascade of events. And what we do again out there, like I started this all with, is we go, well, what do I need to take so that those things go away? I think it's just the wrong question. The question is, how do I get healthy and balanced enough to not have those things anymore? Right. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's what we're going to be looking at. So I know that was a little wordy, but now you know, like, all right, well, when I read through this, what am I looking for specifically? And that pretty much is it. So with that much said, let's dive into this.